Thank you for the invitation, editors, ladies and gentlemen. As it is a conference on aging and old, perhaps it's appropriate for me to tell you that I'm probably the oldest person in this hall right now. I'm 75 years old. Is there anybody who's older than 75? It'll be interesting. One, two, good. So I have company. Okay. The idea is, I'm going to give a kind of overview. You're going to get into the details. In the last 5 minutes I was here, I heard a lot of details, and I'm sure you'll do a lot of that. The picture I give, I found is quite useful for many people. I've given this to foreigners, to government officials, people from the RAND Corporation, and I think perhaps if you listen with an open mind, it may help you get a little perspective, a broad perspective. That's the idea. But of course, given the time limitation, I'm going to compress it quite a lot. So I'll start with, so the topic you have seen, it's a vision of Viksit Bharat. I call it a vision because one of the things that PM has emphasized many times is that it should not be just a vision from Niti or the government. There should be a vision which is shared by everybody, every state, district, all organizations should participate in developing this vision. So this is a vision. You could say it's my vision. It's not even Niti's vision. That's just the background. So for those you're in the media, if you're quoting, this is not the Niti's view nor the government's view. It's a vision. Okay. So given the 25 minutes, I will lay out the stuff, give you a little bit, give you a sample, and then maybe we can have further discussions in the. So where are we today, right? So I will tell you a little bit about the GDP and GDP growth, the issues of employment, poverty, and income distribution, which you keep reading in the papers and magazines. Then I will say a little bit about the opportunity global, which there are 3 or 4 very, very important trends. And that's a part which is actually, you may find useful for any occupation or any part of the economy you deal with. The challenges domestic, I'll probably just mention. They are quite well known. And then I will give you a little bit about the outcomes where we hope to be in the next 7 years, 25 years. So where do we stand? On the growth rate, for a period of over 40 years now, our growth rate has been accelerating, not just with respect to ourselves, but with respect to the average growth of the world and with respect to China. So the gap between our growth and China's growth has reduced and been eliminated now. So as far as growth is concerned, it's a long-term trend, and my projection for this decade is 7% growth. So on growth, we are doing well. We are well positioned. Then I will give you a little bit of a picture because there's a lot of controversy which I think is unnecessary, that we are doing reasonably well in employment, poverty distribution. So here is data from the PLFS, and focus on the graphs. That is the what is called the worker population ratio. We have 2 measures. We need not go into the details, but you can see from this graph that over the last 6 years, the consistent data is from AY 2017-18 to now the latest data which has just come out. I'm not sure whether I added it. No, the data point just came out last week. That shows the same further rising trend. So you have a rising trend in the ratio of worker population to workers to population, whether we measure in terms of numbers of people employed or in terms of actual work hours or the equivalent of that. What does that mean? That means the rate of growth of jobs is faster than the population. So anybody who says otherwise is just plain wrong as a trend. Now you can always pick out one place or one state or one time period and say, we've gone down. But when we are talking about 10 years, 15, 20 years, we look at the trends. So the trend on employment is good as far as it goes here. Again, I can go into the details, I usually do, but there's not much time. So the fact that we are doing okay now, we are well positioned. That doesn't mean, it'll be automatic. The other thing which is often raised is poverty. One reads a lot about how poverty is bad, it's worsened. I don't know where people get this imagination. Now we have very clear data from two surveys which are comparable. There's the 2011-12 survey and the 2023 survey, which clearly shows a large decline in poverty from 12.2% to 2.3%. And if you adjust for what we call in-kind transfers like free food or subsidized food, then that is virtually zero now. So you can say the poverty, as we have talked about it for the last 75 years, is gone. So the question is, does that mean there is no poverty? No, there are other measures of poverty which are stricter, which middle income countries use. If we use that indicator, that is the 3.2 PPP, what it says here, the definition doesn't matter, but even there, the vulnerable, you can call it the vulnerable population, that has gone down from 53.6% to 21.8%. Certainly, one of our goals would be to eliminate that in the next 7 years or so. And that is feasible, very feasible. Then we can also look at social indicators. I just want to put one here because some of you may say, you not talked about social indicators and these are relevant to your financial issues. This is a graph of life expectancy of every country for which we have data. Okay, so those green rounds you see, they are different countries plotted according to per capita GDP at PPP. The first red dot there on the left is India. So we do a trend line, so to say, of how life expectancy increases with per capita income, and we find that we are little behind. You can see the red dot is a little below the line. Okay, so we got to do more here. And clearly, if we are going to become an upper middle income country, then accordingly, we have to reach that black dot and then high income country that. So we can do this for every social indicators, and then we say, what is our target? What is it we have to achieve? So we can do that for everything. So we can take stock of where we are and where we want to be. Opportunity. This is the second aspect. So what is the opportunity? The key opportunity here is the demographics. I'm sure all of you have heard the word demographic, dividend, non-dividend, whatever, So what I'm going to give you a brief picture of the global demographics, okay, which is very, very important for our future, including our financial future. And then a little bit about supply chains, because that is going to be one of the key opportunities in the next 5 to probably 10 years or more, okay? And one has to be aware of it and tie it. If I have time, a little bit more on unbundling of services. This is a new trend which is happening right now and will become big for India in about 10 years or so. And skills, of course, I have a lot to say, but I'll just mention it without getting into too much details. But the slogan is very important. Skill for India, skill for world. I have these two slogans. I say skills and jobs are two sides of the same coin, and skill for India and skill for world. There's a huge amount of stuff behind it, which I'm not sure I'll be getting into today, but let's go. So the demographic is most interesting. This is, if you're going to remember anything, remember this. I told you I've been speaking to many people. I've spoken to government officials from US, etc. They are not aware of this. This is a very, very important trend. So I'm going to take a few minutes on this, okay? On the right side, we have different countries' share of working age population in the world. So just to take one number, that 5.3, USA's share of global working age population was 5.3% in 1990, the last three columns. Okay, that's the numbers. Then we subtract them. We say, okay, in the last 30 years, the first line, how much has that changed? And how much will it change in the next 30 years? Okay, so all this data is taken from the UN population. It is not something I invented. I take standard numbers because I don't want to get into controversies. And these are the trends. Now you can see that the high-income countries, USA, West Europe, UK, Japan, Korea, Taiwan, in the last 30 years, they have negative, right? So their working age population share in the world has gone down, and it'll go down further in the next 30 years. But the interesting ones, in a way, which has changed, are the ones below. So China, you can see huge acceleration. Everybody has talked about it. Thailand, which people don't think about. Indonesia, Mexico, Vietnam. These three had a rise in their working population share, but will decline in the next 3 years. So every important country from India's perspective is going to lose working age population. India is the only country which has gained and will gain further in the next 30 years. This is going to drive huge changes in the world. It's a matter of India's comparative advantage. And simplistically, what I say is, our comparative advantage is going to shift from low skill to medium semi-skilled to high skill intensive industry. Okay? Now you might say, we already have very high skill industry, but it's a minuscule part. I'm talking about the whole country, the average of the country. Okay? And this is going to, the challenge, which is obvious, is to bring education, job skills up to this level to take full advantage. It's going to happen. We will get advantage of it, but if we really want to take advantage, we have to focus on the education and skills. Some of the reasons why this is important may be in the question, but I'll tell you. So this is also, you have to understand the globalization trends, because that is going to affect every economy, especially if you do exports or people invest here from abroad. So what the left hand shows is a ratio of merchandise exports to world GDP. And you can see there was a huge period of globalization from around 1898 to 2008. And you can see it's flattening out. Now, exact thing may be a trend decline, it may be a flattening, but the period of globalization is over. Okay, that is one thing we have to be clear. Okay? But the surprise is that China doesn't seem to be affected. You see the two lines, which are these are all shares of world merchandise exports. The two highest countries were China and Germany. They have been declining. But look at China. It keeps going up, 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 up. It's not affected by anything. What does it show? They are not affected by market forces. They are on their own trip. They have their own objectives. They keep rising. And this is the manufacturing. The manufacturing share has gone up to 20%. They went over the three largest exporters of manufactured goods, USA, Germany, and Japan, and keep rising, though they are flattening out a bit. But that is for external reason, all the de-risking, etc. Okay, so what is the point of all this? The point is that globalization is not going to help us. So the only way we can push manufacturing, push manufactured exports is by attracting MNC anchor investors. The history of Southeast Asia shows that South Korea first in the 60s, Malaysia in the 70s, Thailand in the 80s. You look at any country in South Asia, this is how they got their huge jump in growth. We missed out. You're all aware of it. We don't need to get into our socialist policies. For a long time, we were kind of anti-FDI. I think my two old friends will remember we threw out IBM at one point 50 years ago or something. So basically, we missed that bus. We have to catch it now. That's the main point. It's there, and we are doing it. You will see now PM talking about it, the industry minister, everybody is talking. We are welcoming, and we have to all do our bit. That is the message. All of you have to do your bit. This is a huge opportunity, and we must push it. These are some of the reasons why MNCs are so important. They anchor supply chains where 2/3 of the world's trade now goes through. You can think that we will export by ourselves. That is not how the world is working. Much of the manufactured exports are occurring through the MNC supply chain. So you have to have the anchor there. If the anchor investors is there, he says, okay, these are the things we can produce and export from here. These are things we have to import and put into the supply chain. They do it. They do it naturally. And that is how every country in Southeast Asia has developed. And one of the things we forget is, of course, they have, what is the problem? One of the things is we have a competitive disadvantage with Vietnam, Bangladesh, because they have FTAs with EU. So you heard about India's efforts to do an FTA with EU. It is to remove this disadvantage which we have. 12.5% is a lot. I mean, it's a straight disadvantage, that much. And so on, you know. And what I said about anchor investors, they bring skills, they bring quality, but they also bring the demand. Just think of it. They have a supply chain, Apple, that's just an example. They've shifted the operation here. The demand is already there. You know, if I was making mobile phone, I have to find the market. This demand is already there. It's just a shift of supply chain. So that's a huge, huge benefit. So we have to make an effort, and we have clear direction from the PM, I can say, to Niti, that we must see how every state in this country knows, you know, what to do, you know, help them to identify what is missing in that state, so every state can attract investment in FDI. Okay, PLI, etc. I won't get into. The only other point I want to make, and which is again recognized well by the government, this is a strange fact which you know. So India is the 5th largest producer of manufactured goods in the world, but it's the 15th largest exporter. Huge gap of 10 ranks. Why is it? It's the quality. See, the supply chain is just not a bunch of people feeding each other. It's a quality chain. That whole quality has to match. You can't have one component which is completely different quality. So it's a quality chain, okay? And we have a large informal sector which operates on a completely different quality chain. So you have to upgrade the quality to fit into that supply chain. So it benefits everybody. Once that supply chain starts, other people think, oh, I can improve my quality, and the quality also improves. Okay, I've spent a lot of time on this. So let me come to the final point, which is, so we will take off these opportunities. If there are questions on, I mentioned 2 or 3 other things, I'm going to skip those because of lack of time. But I'll end with these. So what is our goal? Our goal is to become an upper middle income country by around 2030, high income country by 2050. That's why I said this is not Niti or PM. I'm just giving you what I find just simple for people to understand, round numbers. Of course, PM's goal is 2047, but I'm not talking about his goals. I'm just giving you some projections of where I think we can get to. Okay. So, so the only other thing you need to know is that for every other country, I use basically a combination of IM and OECD projections. So I don't make projections for any other country, only India. Okay. And then you will see what I have to say India relative to China. So in these projections, I have 3 scenarios. One can call it anything. The green one is the base. I'm just showing you these because there can be tens of scenarios. Okay. So I don't want it taken as if this is the gospel truth, as they say. This is just a projection, okay, which I believe in. Okay. They can be more optimistic, more pessimistic. But in my view, it can't be more pessimistic than red, because the OECD projection is the most pessimistic. That is the red. Okay. Green is what I'm going to talk about. So what does it show? Okay. This is the result. So this is the important, when we use these projections, this is where we will be. Do you have a pointer in here? No, I guess. Okay. So let me just quickly explain this graph. So doing all the things we have to do, which I have not been able to talk about, you know, reforming EODV, etc., we can discuss. Okay. So doing skilling, education improvement, etc. So this is where we hope to be. So the important ones, see, this is an index of economic power where US is the base. So that 1, you see the top line there, 1, in effect that is the US, everybody else is relative to that, okay? So everybody else is below 1. They are not larger than USA. So that's the first thing. In these projections to 2050, the USA remains the most powerful economy. Secondly, if you look at the green line, that is the EU. That is an estimate for EU, okay? It's on a declining path. The blue one which is going up is China. You can see it started rising on the left well before India did, and it went very, very fast. But it's going to, there's now an emerging consensus that it's going to flatten out, okay? Because of all the things, again, we can discuss. And red is India, okay? So we are now at this point. We had a little hiccup. You can see we were rising, and a little bit of hiccup there in the flat portion because of pandemic and things like that. And now we are in this upward path. And the interesting thing to note is by 2050, our economy will be larger, more powerful, whatever you want to call it, than the EU. And we'll be starting to get close to China's economy. That's a big point here. Okay? So, what is the conclusion? We are well placed to become an upper middle income country, high income country, in terms of GDP growth and employment, poverty, income distribution we can handle. There's a challenge. There's always a challenge to every developing country. We can handle it if we focus on it. New opportunities must be grabbed. Demographic change, I have told you about. Demonopolization of manufactured exports. I should have said more. The monopoly, everybody is concerned about it. They want to demonopolize, that is shift, diversify is really the key word, okay? In terms of very rough numbers, if 20% of the existing foreign supply chains in China shift to India, our economy would boom, okay? So that's the kind of huge numbers which are possible. The challenge for us is for all of us together to make it happen. And remember, this is not just manufacturing. The economy will grow faster. The financial sector will grow. Don't forget those links. Everything will grow much faster. The services bundling very, very quickly, because you are with the sector which is concerned with this. You have already seen that, that business services, financial services have been unbundled, and much of it is now being done in India, right? That's what we hear about, GCCs, 200. They're all doing the financial and business services in India. The point I'm making here is that every other service, government services, health services, education services, you know, name it, will unbundle. And the parts which can be done electronically or done from here will be done here. This is going to be a huge, huge opportunity about 10 years from now. To make it a little concrete, I'll just give you a story. I was in OECD about a year or so ago, and they had a study on aging and youth. And that study showed that they were having difficulty hiring people for government services. It's already happening. Okay, it's beginning to happen in education. And it's going to boom because of the demographics plus the anti-immigration sentiment. You see, earlier, if this happened, there's a shortage and they'll say, okay, let's allow immigration. That is not going to be allowed now because of the political sentiments. So there's going to be a boom of this, that what can we do outside? Let me give you one survey. You've all taken visas. That all that visa servicing can be done remotely. Only the final signature of the guy has to be there. He has to sit there and sign it or check it, obviously. So like that, every service, whether it's health, education, etc., is going to be unbundled, broken up into pieces, and the parts which can be done in India, because they are labor intensive, low skill, middle skill, remember what I said, they're going to be put to India. Okay, old challenges I want to mention, because I don't want it said that you are ignoring all those. These are the two challenges we still have. We are trying very hard, but you know, it's a difficult challenge. Is the bureaucratic socialism legacy you're all familiar with. You have to deal with it every day. And the quality of basic education and skilling. So that's a big challenge which I have personally been working on for the last 2 years. The government has many schemes, etc. But the issue is what more can we do? Thank you.